This is the Tabernacle podcast with John Vermilia and me, Britton Bishop. What's up, John?
What's up, brother? I am in full fall mode, which means sermon prep. It means coaching soccer, but it also means scouting because deer season's coming.
Oh, there it is.
Deer season's
this weekend,
coming.
or last weekend.
Youth
season. Awesome.
Right.
Yeah, Benji killed a monster. No, I'm just kidding. We record these a week before.
we
trying to speak it into existence, Benji.
Yeah, we're not sure. We're not prosperity gospel. But bro, I got to tell you, the place where I hunt, and I'm not going to say it out loud because Northern Michigan men are ruthless, and someone might try to get in on this. I thought the place where we hunt here locally was dried up, and because I haven't seen anything during deer season last year at all, not even doe moving around. And I was starting to feel the pressure because I want my son to have a great experience, and scouted one evening a couple weeks ago. Beautiful night. This is a night they're going to move. Nothing. Only a turkey. And I'm like, bummer. Right. And when I say scouting, I've not yet got to the place where I can, follow every run and see, this is where they're going in the morning. This is where they're going. I'm not that level. Yep. Right. But I just go and sit just to kind of see what's out there. But earlier this week, I went out right after dawn, eased into a stand, and I could see there was already a deer out in the field. And when he picked his head up, buck.
There you go.
6 or 7 point. I'm like, oh, this is good. This is good. Sat for a few more minutes. He moved off. I saw 2 more. Next one to put his head up, it was at least an 8.
Hey.
And I'm like, oh, there's a 6 and an 8. We got shooters. This is good. Should I go home now? Whoa, wait, there's one more. His head's down. That bro had his head down eating something forever. When he finally put his head up, I kid you not, he was the king of the forest.
Hey, let's go.
He was the king of I don't know what you call it, but when the horns like get wide and start kind of splaying out, Ben knows the word. It's something, he said the word and I already forgot it because it wasn't in the Bible. But this thing, minimum 10 points.
Nice.
And it was probably more.
Let's go.
I'm hunting that bad boy.
Yeah.
And, well, I mean, not if Benji gets him first.
Yeah.
That's fine.
It's exciting. Based off what I heard stories upstairs, Benji's a old Deadeye over there.
Oh, he's Deadeye Pete.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Don't ever make him mad.
Love it.
Yeah, when you're sighting in a rifle and all 3 shots go in the same hole, it's like, yeah, that's consistency.
Yeah,
so
that is.
But we'll see what happens. Because like men, and this is a podcast about men today.
Yeah.
When a man sees a deer, like a big shooter, I don't care who you are, that boom, 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 just starts going, the little buck fever.
100%.
I remember the first one I saw years ago. I couldn't breathe.
Oh, yeah. It's the whole
I was
shaking.
Like, I'm a grown man. I'm an athlete. I can't breathe.
I don't know if I've ever told this story, but my first time deer hunting by myself, right? You're in the stand. I was in a ground blind. I was like, oh, I'm pretty hidden. But you don't, like, I'm probably, how old are you, Benji? 13, 14?
14? Almost 15.
I think I was 12, 11 or 12. But in Oklahoma, on the ranch, you just do whatever you want. So I'm sitting out there by myself in a ground blind. And this deer comes out, good deer, chasing a doe. I ducked, to hide from it because I didn't want it to see me.
You're in the ground blind and you duck.
I just
you just feel so exposed.
Just have to hide.
Oh.
It's I can see him. He has to be able to see me.
That's awesome.
And this deer just runs off and I'm like, well, at least he didn't see me. And I'm like, what are you doing?
Oh,
you look back and you're like,
no, but that's natural.
There's so many moments
that's natural because I got my first buck, real buck. I was in a ground blind and it was a huge 8 point. It's hanging in my office. It's huge for me.
Yeah.
I don't care. I love that deer. It'll be my favorite deer forever. And when he came out, I'm in a blind behind a netting, and I froze.
Yeah,
I didn't even breathe.
Not even blinking.
And I'm like, wait a second, he can't see me. Just don't make sounds, John.
Right.
And if I was so afraid a sneeze would come or a cough or I can't breathe.
All of it.
And he'd be gone. But he didn't, and now he's dead. Praise God.
Yeah, it's fall time. Football season, deer season.
Yeah,
we're back. Well, you almost had him.
Yeah.
You almost had him.
Are you talking about Notre Dame?
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
That team that shall not be named.
I love that game because I got to see my father loves the team that shall not be named because he's born and raised in Columbus, Ohio.
Hey.
And he's the most legit. He's 80 years old, almost 80 years old, pastor, the holiest guy that I know. And he's the Columbus,
Yeah.
He's that type of fan you want him to be because he cheers for his team and whoever the Big Ten's playing.
Love it.
You could be Northwestern.
Yeah.
playing playing Oklahoma. He's going to be for Northwestern. No offense.
Hey, it's all good.
He's always going to be for the Big Ten, including Michigan, including Michigan State. You know,
he's a purist.
He's a purist, man.
Love it.
Yeah. So
I'm still getting used to Big Ten football.
So if Notre Dame's going to lose, I want to be sitting in a chair right next to my dad in Indianapolis.
Is he a gracious winner?
Oh, 100%. He never rubbed anything in.
Yeah.
In fact, you know, I know he's excited, and the game's over, and he goes, well, they did really well, son. He goes, they did really well. He still doesn't understand. Well, he knows why I'm Catholic on Saturdays.
Yeah.
But it's because he moved there when Lou Holtz did. But
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Yep, I'm not like that at all. So
no, you're not that at all. You rub, dude. You rub it in. That's okay. Talk all the smack.
I had a strategic play this year that I'm excited about. So we started fantasy football.
Oh yeah,
and it had a league expansion this year. And in that expansion, I asked my wonderful wife, Hope Bishop, "Hey, do you want to join the league?" And I'm excited because she's like, "Hey, just so you know, my quarterback's playing tonight, so we got to watch that." And I'm like, "Boys, we did it. We did it. We want to watch football together now." So, but now she'll beat me.
But she's competitive.
Oh
man.
yeah, no, she had a full strategy, everything. She's already got a bet going with Bub that if she beats him head to head in more games than he beats her, he has to buy her whatever pair of Nikes she wants.
Dang,
he doesn't know the one she wants. They don't sell in stores.
They don't sell in stores. You're
Bub's
going
to be dropping some coin.
Wow.
But
if you guys don't know Hope Bishop, you married up, bro.
Oh yeah,
and now she's into football.
Oh,
it's
she's
on.
pumped. She's pumped.
On.
Michigan won, so she's all as good at our house.
You know, there's fantasy Premier League soccer.
Is there?
I'll tell her about that. She'll rope you in next year.
I don't know.
Yeah, she'll
rope you in. You have to wake up too early. I think she might be out on waking up early to watch Premier League games. So. No, that's what. Anytime she's like, "Yeah, so you guys watching football this Saturday?" She goes, "Yeah, and Sunday, and Monday, and Thursday, and Friday."
She is on it.
So she's like, "No, that's what we do," and it's just like, I get it, but at the same time, like, you don't care about these teams. Why do we have to watch them?
Yeah, I know.
There's just something in me.
But you know, the 1 or 2 years, it was when my brother was here on staff. My brother Joe, he got us into fantasy football. I never watched more NFL than when I was in fantasy. And as soon as I wasn't in a league, it's like maybe I'll watch.
It's fun.
You know,
it's
college football though, I'm on.
Yeah, 100%. So, well, sweet. That's that's what we wanted to talk about. Yeah. And no, I'm excited.
I'm fired up about what we're talking about.
About a month and a half, 2 months ago. We had we had a fight night here at the Tabernacle, and Dean Holtz came and joined us. If you haven't watched his episode on the podcast, it's a great episode. Just go check out. Incredible storyteller, just one of those guys that, like, man, when I have a cup of coffee, Dean is a guy that's fun to have around because he can tell you stories for days.
Right.
His wife is a much better shot than him, but we don't have to get into that.
No,
we don't have to get into that. But when you go to their house, the big deer on the wall are all hers.
All Linda's.
Yeah. So.
Yep, all Linda's.
But whenever he was here, we had a moment where I believe it was Martin that got up and just said, "Hey, if you guys have any questions, we would love for you guys to just to write these down." I don't remember the process. I was at camp actually working, but. We gathered all these questions from men, and we've kind of broken them into 6 categories. And I think over the next so many weeks, as we intermingle some change life stories and different things, this is going to be kind of a topic that we jump into, and it's questions men ask.
Questions men ask.
Yeah, and I know that we have a lot of listeners that aren't men, but I would encourage you to listen to this because this isn't just questions.
Questions.
Yeah, they're not just man questions. A lot of this. Just applies to everyday Christian living, what it looks like to follow Jesus, what it looks like to how to deal with hard times and struggling, questions about sin, theology, the Bible, stuff like that. There are some men-specific questions, but for those of you, maybe you're married to a man, and he might be asking this question, so how can you help love him through this, or whatever that looks like. So I'm excited about it, but why are you excited about it?
Well, I'm excited because questions and answers are some of the best ways to learn.
Mm-hmm.
Even, it's funny because we've asked people, hey, would you email your questions into the Tab podcast email? And those have been few and far between, like 0.
Yeah.
Right?
We've gotten a few, but
we've gotten a few.
And the ones that are just like, that's more of a conversation.
Yeah.
If we do a full podcast on that. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But Q&A, when I'm at a camp and we have a Q&A session, it's outstanding.
Yep.
When I'm at a fight club or leading a fight club, the questions are what lead us right to where people want answers and where they're struggling.
Yep.
And so you're right. This isn't just for men. This is men and women. But this installment, this will be the first installment. I mean, we'll see how many we get through, but it's questions men ask. And we're not trying to be the final authority, but you and I, for a living, we're supposed to study, learn the Bible, teach the Bible, preach the Bible, and we can tell you from God's perspective this is what you're looking for. And for the record, I've also asked our Tab Women's Director, Rachel Vore, to get the same type of questions the next time there's a women's gathering.
Yep.
So we want to do an installment called Questions Women Ask.
Yeah.
And so it's particularly or specifically from men today, but it's for all of us.
Yep. And I think, too, we've talked about having questions students ask and everything like that.
Yes,
so,
questions students ask.
And I think
what
we'll see as we do that, if we were to keep all of those questions and compare, there's going to be a lot of overlap between a ton of those questions. Obviously, there will be some specific, but...
Now, I don't know how to do this, Britton, but you're one of the most creative guys that I know. This would be cool, is if we could get... Like we have 36 questions so far, which is interesting because there was over 100 guys there, and we gave a card to every dude. Hey, would you ask a question? Only 36 bothered to play.
Yep.
The other guys are like, I don't play games, right? But that's Northern Michigan men. I would love to have like a podcast that was questions non-Christians ask.
That would be
that would be really fun.
Yeah, it would be.
So
just go hang out in TC and walk around the streets and be like, "Hey, I'm a pastor. What's one question you would ask me?"
Yeah, exactly.
And then not answer it and just walk away. Oh, thank you.
Thank you. We'll just put it on a card and walk away.
Sweet.
Maybe we'll sit in Mundo's and do that.
Yeah.
Where Lily.
I don't know. Mundo's is a lot of like your Christian hangout spot. It seems.
No, that's true.
Yeah, probably go to Big B Adam or something like that. No.
Well, yeah.
So, well, sweet. We'll just jump straight in. This first one comes from a category we titled "Questions Men Ask About Hard Times and Struggling," and I think that this one correlates to that. And the question is, how can I draw closer to God?
How can I draw closer to God? Well, when we were looking over some of these questions pre-show, the first verse that popped into our mind, and you nailed it, was from James chapter 4, verse 8, where it says, "Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you." So in James chapter 4, though, if we look at the context, which, I think we quoted that a ton during our Rattle series a couple of years ago, but we didn't always take the time in every one of the services to kind of break that down. If we dial it back all the way over to verse 6, speaking of God, he says, "He gives more grace." Therefore, it says, "God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Submit yourselves, therefore, to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw near to God, and he will draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded." And so there's a lot of things, and this is what we love about James, about all the stuff we're supposed to do.
Yeah.
So what I want to do with this question, let's start with what the Bible says, and then let's talk practically about, okay, that's what the Bible says, but what does that look like, right? So it starts out by saying that God's a God of grace. So the first thing for the person who feels far from God is remember his grace covers you, whether you feel close to him or you feel far from him. We're not governed by our feelings, right? So there's grace. How much grace? More.
Yeah.
Is it that much grace? No, it's more.
Yep.
Is it 100 graces?
Yeah.
It's more.
More.
Is it 1,000 graces? I don't even know what that is. It's like you got the cheat code on the video game, and there's always more grace.
Yeah.
And so it starts there, but it says God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. So we start by humbling ourselves, staying low before God, seeking him with reverence and awe. Then it says, "Submit yourselves, therefore, to God." And that's what's Britton Bishop's favorite saying. It's become part of the vernacular at the Tabernacle because every staff member we add contributes to the language that you'll hear a lot at church. And it's always give God your
yes.
Give him your yes.
Yeah.
So that's submitting yourself, therefore, to God. So if you're giving God your no, you're not drawing closer. Submit yourself to God.
And that's before we go into the next part.
Yeah,
I think
that's
that what came to mind for me whenever we were hitting on this is how can I draw closer to God? If you're not feeling close to God, there's probably something there in your life that is hindering your ability to feel that, whether it be unforgiveness, bitterness, unrepentant sin, like we just talked about a couple weekends ago. And so in that process of giving your yes to God, letting him be your ultimate authority, humbling yourself, there's a process in that I think is found in Jesus in Luke 15 where he says you deny yourself. And I think that that's a key piece in drawing closer to God.
That's good.
And I think that hits with that whole like submission piece to God is if I'm going to submit to God, then I can't also submit to myself. And I think that's kind of the duality that we live in as humans is am I going to submit to my flesh or am I going to submit to God? But I think for us to draw close to God, we have to decide who. And Pastor Ben talked about this in a really beautiful way. I think when we went through 1 Corinthians chapter 4 or the latter parts of chapter 3, whose authority will you follow?
Good.
And I think that is a key piece in drawing closer to God. Is His authority the ultimate authority in your life? That's just the place that my head goes with that verse, especially.
Well, you were mentioned in Luke chapter 14, Jesus' call to all disciples: deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow. Follow means obedience. It means I'm not in charge of my life; He's in charge of my life. That's part of submitting to God. That whole thing is submission. The only way we come to God is on our knees in humility and seeking His grace, submitting to Him. And then it says, resist the devil, he will flee from you. So resisting the devil, that means not giving in to temptation, not willfully choosing sin, but instead running from sin, fleeing from sin. It's interesting. We flee from sin, and sin, the devil will flee from us.
I like the active kind of thing that we see there. It's not like a one-time decision you made, but it's this active fleeing from sin. And I think that's important for believers to remember, is it's not just a one-time prayer. It's not just a one-time emotion or a one-time experience. It's active. It's daily. Romans 12 talks about that, right? It's renewing. It's a daily choice.
Be transformed
to draw close
by the
to God.
renewing of your mind.
Yep.
How do you renew your mind? By doing different things, thinking about different things, seeking different things, reading different things.
Exactly.
So then it gives us the draw near to God, He'll draw near to you. Cleanse your hands, you sinners, and purify your hearts, you double-minded. That's saying, hey, if there's sin in your life, confess it, repent, turn from that sin. You got to cut out sin. And so all of that kind of works together. Now, the draw near to God and draw near to you piece, that's kind of like a summary statement right in the middle. And so all of that, submission, repentance, fleeing, I'm running away from sin and temptation. What am I running towards? I'm not just running into outer space. Right. I'm not just running into the wilderness. I'm running to God. Run away from that and run to that. So all of those parts play into drawing near to God. So for you personally, practically, I'm going to put it on you. How does Britton Bishop draw near to God outside of those things that we already mentioned? Like you've fled from sin, you've given God your yes, you've submitted to Him. And now you just want to feel closer. You want to be closer. What's that look like?
For me, it starts first thing in the morning, practically. So for me, I can tell by how my day is going to go by if I'm spending time with God. And so that's something that is a discipline. It's not fun. I don't enjoy waking up early. Pastor Seth will tell you, don't schedule a meeting with Britton before 11 o'clock because he's not happy to be there. But there's something in my life practically that when I give God those first minutes, that I know, man, He is the ultimate authority over my life, rather than, right, and this is the cliche things, but there are days where I'm getting up and I'm checking fantasy football or Instagram or Facebook or whatever it might be, and but trying my best. And it's not a crazy study time, right? For me, first thing in the morning, when I get up, I just do one of the little Bible app, the YouVersion Bible app. I pick a plan that I just go through, and whether like the one I'm doing right now, we'll just keep it practical and tactical. This isn't a deep study. Sometimes it's not things I didn't already quote unquote know, but the plan I'm doing right now is called Jesus People Better Together. Nice. And it's just fellowship, just a little basic, and it's usually 5 or 6 verses, a little short 2-minute read devotional. But I've found that practically, if that's how I start my day, now, obviously, I don't wake up 2 hours before I'm supposed to be somewhere. Sorry, I'm still 26 and I don't have kids.
Nice.
But so that's just how I start it. And then I do my thing. And then obviously I'm blessed that I get to read my Bible at work. So that's when I do a lot of my deeper studying times. And those things happen in the evenings, or Hope and I will sit down sometimes. But for me, it's just first thing, just consistent.
That's first
being able to manage those things. Yeah. And that's for me the closeness piece, because it's reminding me. It's not reminding God that He's important. It's reminding me that that's important. God doesn't need to be reminded that He's what I need. I need to be reminded that He's what I need. So
that's awesome.
That's kind of the practical, fundamental piece.
So that's
for me.
A good one, is to start the day. I know for some people they like to end the day as well, or they end the day instead.
Yep.
I like the first thing in the day. I've got a little devotional book I'm rolling through. Outside of that, another thing that you can do: pray. Pray. So, you spend that time, you're done with your coffee, you get ready for work, you're rolling off to work, cut the radio, just for a second and just spend, even if it's 5 minutes, just talking to God, laying him, hey, these are my concerns. Spend some time thanking him. The devotional I read this morning was about rejoice in the Lord, rejoice always. I say it again, rejoice. And it's like, how do you rejoice always?
Yeah.
Well, that's a choice. It's choosing in the midst of whatever you're going through to rejoice. And so spending time in prayer, rejoicing in the Lord, thanking him for what he's blessed you with. We're all recipients of his grace, and that's more than we deserve. So you always have something to be thankful for.
Absolutely.
Another thing is worship. And when I say worship, I'm specifically talking about praise and music, how it can set the tone. You might on the way, hey, what's your favorite praise song? I'm going to start with that today. Or when you're down, for me sometimes, when the dishes get piled way up, because there's a lot of people in my house, and my wife, her back was out. It's like, I'm going to put on worship music because I got to get through this mountain of dishes, and I want to do it with a good attitude. And I'm singing sometimes. Sometimes I'm letting her sing on not my wife, the person on the Spotify, because she's a better singer. Thanks, Lauren Daigle. Sing it, Lauren. Let me hear it. So those are practical and tactical things, that you can do. I don't know. Is there anyone?
No, 100%. I think that those ones are key. Another piece too of that closeness that I have found, which is it takes a long time. At least it's taken me a long time to figure out. Maybe it's just my personality, but it's just sitting and listening to God.
Oh, it's a good one.
Because a part of like Hope and I's intimacy isn't just the fact that I talk to her; it's the fact that she talks to me. And so, for me, it's the discipline. So whenever I come to Buckley, I have an hour drive. 50 something minutes, whatever. But it's hard, but there are days where it's like, no, I'm just going to sit here silently.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pray. I'm not going to listen to music. I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to trust that God, it's through prayer, right?
Yeah.
Through that.
It is
that
prayer.
God, yeah, it is. But
prayer,
I'm
but
not going to be the one doing the
talking.
talking.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's real
And
good.
so just sit and listen. And sometimes there are moments where, oh crap, like I need to remember to write that down, or I'll pull in and I'll have my notes section, or sometimes I do it while I'm driving. But there are moments where it's like, man, like that's good. I didn't know that's where I was at today.
Yeah.
And just being reminded of those things and trusting. And so I think that's a key piece as well, is that drawing close to God, and He'll draw near to you it's active, but at the same time, we don't always have to be the one talking.
Yeah.
And I think that's hard for me sometimes. So
yeah, we control the part that we can control.
Yep.
We can't control people, places, or things. And for daggone sure, none of us can control God.
Right.
So He tells us, draw closer to me. And, the interesting thing is, God doesn't move. It's usually our feelings that feel far. You said something about listening. Another thing that I've tried in the drawing near to God when it's, just got back from staycation and when all of a sudden, I got all these different worlds. I got parents, I got players. There's people in the church. I'm visiting someone tonight in the hospital. We have staff. There's speaking engagement. I mean, there's all these, as my mother says, every time she sees me, because she's always praying for her kids, and she's probably prays more for me than anyone else on the planet, except maybe my wife.
Right.
She says, John, I always have this picture that everything is pulling on you. Well, I'm not unique. Everyone's pulling at Britton.
Yep.
Everyone's pulling at Hope. Everyone's pulling at, my kid. I mean, everyone wants something. The world wants something from you. And whether it's good or bad, especially when it's bad, I've tried to get to a place instead of, oh, here we go, another thing. Like, we just got hit with we got a school bill. I got to buy all 4 tires and a battery. And we got hit with to fix one of the daughter's cars. It's like, oh, this financial stuff. I find myself wanting to go to stress mode. How do I draw closer to God in that? It's just to pause and say, hey, God, what are you trying to teach me in this? Or God, what are you trying to do in this?
100%.
Like God, what's up with this?
Yep.
Because there's always something. He always has a purpose and a plan. So you can draw near to God. Hey, I just got this diagnosis. Okay, God, what's the relationship with you and me look like in this? How can I draw closer to you through this?
Yeah.
And there's always a way, but it's on us.
Yeah.
God doesn't change, but He changes me. He changes everything around Him all the time.
Yes,
and I'm one of them. So
yeah. And I think that, and I think too, just a piece of it too is just do it. There's not a magic answer. There's not a magic devotional. There's not the best book you can read. Like, how do I draw closer to God was the question. Start.
Yeah.
Right? I think he sees and knows the motives and the desires of your heart. And if your desire is to be closer to God, I promise, if you're doing everything you can to do that, you will.
Yeah.
And there's no arrival point either.
Yeah.
I think that's important too, because there's so many people like, well, if my quiet, like for me, right? Man, if I just had the intimacy like Foster Christie, whew, right? But then it's like, yeah, but that's not, he hasn't arrived. Foster would be the first one to tell you he hasn't arrived, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's often where we can get is we start comparing our spiritual maturity or our closeness to God to the people around us. But understand, man, we're people of process, and God loves us, and you're close because He sent Jesus for you, and if you've trusted in Him for salvation, you've repented of your sin, confessed with your mouth and believed in your heart, like you're a child of God, and you're close to Him. And now your active process is just like, man, I just want to do that every day. And you might not ever arrive until eternity, but good news, none of us will.
So I got a last one as well. And I don't know, we didn't put the names on this on purpose. I don't know exactly who asked this, but there's so many men as we started the podcast. This time of year, they're heading into the woods. And my challenge would be, why don't you hunt with God this year? Like make it a practice. I'm going to hunt with God. Every time you get up before the crack of dawn, you climb into the stand, or you're out in the woods, sitting in a tree stand during bow season, whatever it is. Most men are sitting in deer blinds alone. Well, the monks of old, they pursued God, drawing closer to God through silence, solitude, and prayer. In fact, there's a book that I read on that, Silence, Solitude, and Prayer, and I've lost the book and I haven't been able to find it because I don't know if that was the exact title or even who wrote it. But it had a profound impact on me. And in this busy, busy world, where do we have silence? Almost never. Where do we have solitude? Well, if you're a married guy trying to, make a life in this world, it's busy. You got kids, you got a wife, you got church, you got all your activities, and prayer. Most men and women, it's like, oh, I don't know how to pray. Well, you can talk, right?
Yep.
But if you think about those disciplines, silence, solitude, and prayer, a deer stand is made for it.
Oh, yeah.
What if you got off your phone and you purposefully set aside that time? Hey, God, I'm out here hunting, but would you hunt with me? Would you just, hey, I'm hunting, but I'm here to hunt with you.
Yeah.
And, He's not going to spook the deer, and it doesn't mean He's going to bring in the king of the forest just for you because you're
does, you owe us the jerky.
Oh,
continue.
absolutely. If Ben Yost makes it, right? But what a cool thing. What a cool opportunity. How many hours men are going to sacrifice and dedicate in the stand. If all of that time you got the double dip, of that was also my time with God.
Yeah.
That could change deer camp.
Yeah, one of my favorite stories from something like that. There was an old dude that went to our last church, and his son also went to the church. Old dude's like 75, 80. Son is in his 40s. And he's showing us all a picture of a deer on camera, shooting time, monster. It's in Kansas, so use your a freak of nature.
He's got a chandelier on his head.
It's monster. And he's like, and you won't believe, Dad was in the stand. I'm like, man, we go over to him. What happened? Why didn't you shoot that deer? And he goes, I was reading my Bible. I didn't even look up.
Wow.
And the whole time, this huge, I'm not even kidding you guys, 165, 170-inch whitetail is eating in this cornfield in front of him.
He never saw it.
And he never looked up because he was looking down at his Bible the whole time.
God had something to teach him.
Yeah, and I think that's just so funny. But he wasn't bitter.
No,
he wasn't mad. He was just
bitter.
like, I was just spending time with God. And so I just thought that.
Rejoice in the Lord always. So. Even when you missed it because you were drawing closer.
Exactly.
Drawing closer was better.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah, so that's how you can draw closer to God. And if you find out another way, sweet. Pumped for you.
Yeah.
Next one, we go to, for us, it'll be page number 2, John. It's just kind of this idea. Questions men ask about sharing their faith. And I think this one kind of goes well with the question we just answered. How do you know what God is leading us to do, right? How do I know what God is leading me to do, maybe?
Yeah. Well, one of the amazing gifts that we have when we become a Christian is the same Spirit of God that raised Jesus from the dead, the Spirit of Jesus Christ. The Holy Spirit takes up residence in our lives. So primarily, we're going to hear from God, and that's how He leads us. Is when we hear from God, the Holy Spirit lives in us. I heard a wise preacher say one time. The one thing to remember when you're preaching about sin, which you did just a couple weeks ago beautifully. It was a great sermon. If you haven't heard it in the 1 Corinthians series, Britton Bishop preached the paint off the walls about sin. But most people know what sin is.
Yeah.
Why? Because of the Holy Spirit.
Yep.
Because of the law that God's already written on our hearts. So at the bare minimum, we know that God is leading us away from sin.
Yes.
That's why you and I as pastors, and we both coach out in the secular, big, bad public school world, where somebody who's not a Christian will swear in front of us or say something off color, and then they'll look at you and go, "Sorry, pardon my French."
We just had a good one the other day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, this kid dropped an F-bomb at football practice.
Oh, yeah.
Normal. And then the other kid says, "Dude, you can't say," drops the F-bomb, "Coach Bishop's a pastor." And I'm like, you just realized you just said it too. And he goes, "Oh," and then he cussed again.
Oh, wow. Well, dude, if I remember, because you text me and some other guys, word for word, it was like, you can't say F, Britton's a effing pastor, right? Which is as pagan as you could possibly get. But it proves the point.
Yep.
So at the very base level, we have God's Spirit that's even convicting non-Christians. Yeah, you know that's sin. That's why we're always trying to justify it. Well, for us, how do you know what God is leading you to? It starts with His Spirit. That still small voice in your heart that's renewing your mind, that's leading you away from temptation and leading you onto the right path.
Something we say often that you just said, and I just want to clarify that for people, but you said voice. And I think that's often the tripping point for people is they're like, well, I don't hear an audible voice. I don't hear actual. So can you kind of break that down, like what that can look like for people?
So for me, I've never heard God's voice audibly. Mm-hmm. I have friends that have told me that I heard a voice.
Yeah.
That's pretty rare, though.
Yep.
And I'm not going to sit here and contest that.
Yep.
And I know it's dangerous to say things like, try to put God in the dock and say, "God, you speak to me so I know you're real." Mm-hmm. God speaks to us, and this speaks to leading us by His Spirit. And for me, it's that still small voice in my heart. But usually it has something to do with His Word, which He's written down. So that's the second way to know how God is leading us. This also is the bigger question of how do I know what God's will is? Mm-hmm. People will ask you or I that all the time. What is God's will for my life? Here it is.
Yep.
Well, I don't read a lot. Yep. Well, then you're not going to know.
Yep.
Get somebody to read it to you. As I've said before.
If you're just listening, John's holding up his very large ESV study Bible.
Exactly. Just get into God's Word. And this isn't empirical. This isn't perfectly scientific. But I think 95 up to 99% of God's will, God's leading, God's voice, He's already said.
Yep.
And it's fleshing that out. What is to love God with heart, soul, mind, and strength? What is to love my neighbor as myself? What does it mean to confess sin to one another? And He will heal you. He'll bind you up. What does it mean to draw near to God and draw near to you? 95, 99 even percent. He's already told us what to do and how to live and how to glorify Him, how to serve the needy, to give to the poor, to protect the fatherless and the widow, to be generous, all of these things, to be gentle, to not be harsh, to submit to Caesar, right? To give to God or to Caesar what is Caesar, and to God what is God. It's all there.
Yep.
It's that little bit that we get tripped up on.
Yep.
Now, for those, if you're doing all the rest, the 95% that He's made clear, that's just the basic, this is what a follower of Jesus does. I mean, it's kind of like, to use a really bad analogy, it's like, sports. He wants you to play football. Mm-hmm. Let's say that's what all this book said, is God's will is for every disciple to play football. And then they're all like, yeah, but what position?
Yeah.
Well, start by going to practice and getting on the field and play football.
Yep.
We'll figure it out.
I think too often we box God in that His ability to move is based off my ability to make a decision.
Yeah.
And so many people
What do you mean by that?
Like so many people get stuck with, like, often in my context, where am I supposed to go to college? Right? Where's God? I'm just praying, where does God want me to go to college? And often where I'll go with that with a student is, what if God doesn't care where you go to college? What if He just cares about what you do once you get there?
Excellent.
And I think so many guys are like, man, where's God leading me to? Wherever you are. Like, I don't think that it's so often we think, well, am I making the right decision? Like, all right, there's this guy at work, and I feel like I'm supposed to share my faith with him, but
I haven't heard from God.
Yeah, I don't know if God's leading me to this. It's like, no, He is. Yeah,
He is.
You can find it in the Bible, and I think that's what you're hitting. Like,
yes.
There's so many things that
the point is, you're supposed to share your faith, man.
Exactly.
When there's an opportunity. Sorry.
No, and I think that's what I wrote down though. Was like, how do I know what God is leading us to do? What if He doesn't like specifically, right? He cares about us. He cares about what we're doing. But I think the place that people get stuck is when they start getting super specific about like, well, I really want to honor God in the workplace, and I want to provide for my family, and I want to be a good husband, and I want to take care of my kids. So where does God want me to work? What if he just wants you to work?
Yeah.
And he doesn't care if it's at Walmart or Costco, but he just wants you to go to one of them and then honor and glorify him there, and don't get hung up on the process of the middle. And I think so often, that's why I think so often we think God's ability to move is based off of our ability to make the right decision.
Right.
And we think that, well, if God said Costco and I go to Walmart, I'm screwed.
Right.
Right. He's not going to show up. He's not going to move because I messed it up with making the wrong decision, or that wasn't where he was leading me to, and now I've just ruined it. And it's like, no, he's way bigger than that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's often like
he's going to do what he wants to do, regardless of our circumstances, and even regardless of our bad choices.
Yeah.
So, and this is a great question because, okay, so the answers are by his Spirit, through his word, like something you're going to be reading is going to apply to your day, and yes, put it into action. But God's also going to help lead you or speak to you through people around you.
Yeah, the affirmation of the saints.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the questions I get all the time is, how do I know if I'm called into ministry? Well, look, we're all called into ministry. Yeah, but how do I know that I'm called to be a pastor? I believe that God's calling for you to preach or to be a pastor or to be on ministry is affirmed by the church. That's where the calling is. In fact, I think I've told you this story. A mentor in my life, and I think he's been a mentor in your life as well, the most prolific evangelist that I know, Adrian Dupre.
Yeah.
He's with Forge, the ministry that you and I speak with, and I was actually new on the team, and I'd already been doing speaking engagements. It had been almost a year, but I was still like, am I faking it, or is this really my calling to preach? It's actually before I moved to Buckley, Michigan, and we're in a restroom, and it was just he and I out in Colorado. We were at a conference there together, and I just said, Adrian, how do I know that I know that I know that I'm called? Without even looking up, he's over washing his hands at the sink. He goes, oh, I know you're called, 100%. And he doesn't know me that well.
Right.
And so this is leading. How do I know that God is really leading me to do this? Or how do I know that I'm called to do this? And he said, yeah, I know that you're called because I've been to churches that you preached at before me, and then I came to him, and they told me they're planning on calling you back. And he literally made the motion of the church picks up the phone and calls you.
Yeah.
That's calling.
Yep.
Now, that's not emphatic. Like there are some people that we've called that have said, no, I don't believe that God is calling. I mean, it doesn't mean the church is always right.
Right.
But his Spirit, if that's moving in you, his word, it doesn't violate it, and it's actually encouraging you to do that. You've been drawing near to God and seeking him in prayer, and then the people around you, God's people around you, are affirming that.
Yep.
It's probably calling.
Yep.
And I'm not trying to make this about me, but this is my experience. I remember the first person who told me at age 16, you're going to be a pastor. I laughed at her and said, no chance.
Yeah.
And then again, someone told me at 18, no way. And then it was finally at age 30 that someone said, I think this is your calling. And what will God say to you if you ran from it your whole life? And I said, fine.
Yep.
Right? So the other thing to speak to what you were saying is some of us, and I want to be careful how I say this, some of us over-spiritualize things.
Yes.
God, do you want me to go to Meijer or Walmart? Or shop on Amazon?
Meijer, Walmart sucks.
Well, either one
Right.
is like going into the outer vortex of hell,
Yeah,
right?
You go to TC, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Meijer and Manistee.
It's a better one. But but Meijer or Walmart, it's like, no, just go buy the thing.
Yep.
Now, sometimes you'll hear God's voice when he wants to direct the boat on like a minor course correction, you'll know it. And that's when we get into the last thing is God does open doors and close doors. But even that's got to be dangerous. That's why you need the Spirit, you need the Word, you need spiritual wisdom from God's people, from the church. Because I've had people, well, that door closed. Yeah, but you were pretty sure that God wanted or was leading you that way. Yeah, but he closed the door. Sometimes God wants us to knock doors down.
Yep.
And then sometimes the closed door is really him.
Yeah.
And if it's really him, you won't be able to knock that door down.
Oh, 100%.
We experienced that. We were sure that God was leading us to plan a multi-site campus. And so we started with music.
Mhm.
He closed that door. So then we were like, well, maybe it's over here at the school. He closed that door too.
Mm.
It's because the whole time he was opening doors to lead us to Manistee.
Mm-hmm.
But then in Manistee, there were some big things, and this is before you came on staff, where it's like, it was hard.
Yeah.
I mean, doors were closing. We lost not one, two campus pastors before God brought us Seth. And then when we tried to hire Seth, right before the interview, he was like, no, I'm not supposed to go. And so we're like, oh, God closed the door. What are we going to do? But then God's Spirit started speaking to Seth.
Yep.
And he called back. And he was like, I think I made a mistake. And if you don't know that story, we got to get Seth on here for his story.
Yeah.
You know, it's an amazing story of how God brought Seth and Heather to us.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been wonderful.
Yeah.
And what a huge, because God knew that he was bringing you.
Yep.
And that little partnership has been amazing for that campus. So
well, I think that's like in my own story, like that's a huge piece, right? I had resigned from a church. I was getting out of local church ministry. I'm just going to travel and do this thing, and I'm going to go home and kind of do my own thing. When I knew that God's leading for my life was to do local church ministry. I love communities. I love being in communities. Like that's just kind of my draw. But I didn't know what that looked like. So I decided, no, that door's closed because it didn't go right the first time. So God must be wanting me to do this thing, which I'm still doing that other thing. But I had not verbalized to anybody. I had not put anything in. And I get a text message. Hey, I heard you're thinking about getting back into local church ministry.
Sorry for waking you up.
No, but you know, like that's that whole piece. It's like, well, maybe I am.
The church called.
Yeah. And then it's like, well, I'm going to see this through. And then it's like, oh, yeah, I am thinking about getting back into local church ministry because that's what God has for me. But it wasn't, man, do I need to, like, no, I don't know how to articulate it, but that's that whole piece, like what you're saying, like for me and my experience. So for some of you guys that are like, is God leading me to share my faith? Or are there people around you that don't know Jesus?
Then
I'd probably say he's putting you in a situation to share your faith.
Yeah.
Does God want me to invite my buddy over to have dinner at my house with me and my family? Well, do you have a friend? Yeah. Do you eat dinner every night? Yeah. Sweet. Invite him over. And I think that we, like you said, over-spiritualize, overcomplicate what it is to follow Jesus and his leading. And I loved your points. Spending time drawing near to him so you can understand what his voice sounds like. Through the Spirit and those promptings, spending time in God's Word, and ultimately just trust that He's God and you're not.
Yeah. And you need to be in the Word because God's not going to ask you to do something contrary to His Word.
Mm-hmm.
I probably told the story before. I can remember talking to a guy who loved the Lord, who's been on mission trips, who's been, in Fight Club and all this stuff, and then life exploded, and he's leaving his wife and 4 kids.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm having a conversation with him like, don't do this.
Yeah.
Why are you doing this? And he's like, I don't think God would want me to not be happy. And the words that I wanted to say, I couldn't say because pastors shouldn't say.
Yeah.
But it's like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Is God wants me to be happy. So it's his will for me to leave no, it's not going to do something contrary to his word.
100%.
So that's just a guy that's not paying attention.
Yep.
He's not thinking.
Yeah.
So it's you gotta have the framework. You gotta have the foundation. Listen to God's. Don't over spiritualize it.
Yep.
And we could go on. I mean, that could be a whole podcast.
100%.
But I think we've answered that one. So.
Yeah, and I think that your kind of last little segue there. This is a good one. On page 3, it'll be the third question. As a single home income provider, how do men find a balance to love their wives, be the father and spiritual leader we are called to be, and still give God the time and dedication of my life He so duly deserves?
Well, I believe that's a genuine question.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a tired man.
Yeah.
Single home income or a single income home provider. How do I find balance to love my wife, be a dad, be a spiritual leader, and still give God the time and dedication of my life He so duly deserves? So there's 2 things I want to start with, and then we'll see where we go.
Yep.
First of all, and because a man asked this question, I hope he's listening.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to start with this. The curse in Genesis chapter 3. Okay, so yes, we live under grace, but while we're in these bodies, the curse of sin reigns in this world until Jesus comes back to set everything straight. Part of man's curse, not only for the man and the woman will we surely die from eating the fruit, but for the man, he says, cursed is the ground because of you. By the sweat of your brow, you get to work.
Yep.
Now work is going to be hard. There's still parts of work that we love and enjoy, but there's parts of work that are a grind. And that's just because we live in this fallen world. Now, with God's help and God's grace, it's doable. But I would watch this. Is this is a dude, and this is a dude thing.
Mm-hmm.
Dudes compartmentalize.
Yep.
So it's like, so right there, he has provision in one compartment. Loving his wife is in a compartment. Being a dad is in a compartment. Being a spiritual leader is a different hat that he's going to put on. And then give God the time and dedication he so duly deserves. I would start by saying, and this isn't me being sexist or misogynistic, the first things that you provided, that's giving God what he deserves.
Yeah.
Men are called to work, and if you're a husband and a father, you're called to provide for your family.
Yeah.
You don't have to be the sole provider. Doesn't mean she can't work. Doesn't mean she may not make more money than you.
Yeah.
But part of you loving God and loving your wife is working hard at work and doing the best you can, put food on the table, pay the rent, pay the mortgage, pay for the vacations. So that's loving God. That's loving your wife. That's loving your kids. Okay? So if you're the man that's loving his wife and loving his kids by working hard, that's loving your kids.
Yep.
Now, it doesn't mean that, you know, if your kids are little, you don't pray and tuck them in at night. Yeah. Being a man sometimes, oftentimes, most times means you'll probably be the first one up and the last one to go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
First, and it's not up to her to raise the kids in the fear of the Lord. It's your job together.
Yeah.
So take them to church. That's loving your kids. Saying, you know what, kids, here's the deal. You're going to tab student stuff. Oh, but my kids don't want to. As Benji said a couple weeks ago, you're the parent. You say, what's that?
Do it.
Do it. Thanks, Benji. Got the sound effects. So part of loving your kids is saying, you know what? I'm the primary spiritual leader in my life, but I'm going to need Britton's help.
Yeah.
I'm going to need Adam's help. I'm going to need the small group leaders' help that are a Foundry.
Yep.
And so that's giving God time and dedication in your life. You know, it's like, well, but, you know, I do a bow shoot on Wednesdays. Well, organize a different bow shoot because your kid's eternal destination is more important than your hobby.
Yep.
Right? So some of those things, what I'm driving at, and this is for men and women, is, you know, I'll never forget a book I read years ago where they were talking about this issue. And the woman I think went to, you know, was born and raised in a Christian home, loved the Lord, you know, was big into reading her Bible and journaling and spending time with God in worship. And then she went to Christian college and it was the same thing. Then she married a Christian dude. And when they were first married, as you know, then it's like, oh, I've got this other person I'm sharing bathrooms with, but, you know, I still have my spiritual time.
Mm-hmm.
And then kids happened. And what she was sharing in this, I don't know if it was a book or if it might have been on a podcast, but she was sharing all of a sudden my quiet time. You know, now I'm just trying to get sleep.
I think these are two people that you know.
They might be two people that I know.
It is. I know the story you're telling. Yeah.
But it's like, I don't have time for quiet time. I'm folding laundry. I'm changing diapers. There's juice cups. Now I'm talking about a woman, but this is for man too. And then someone pointed out to her, being a good homemaker, that's honoring to God. Doing the laundry, that's loving your kids. Preparing the meal, all of that stuff where you don't feel like it's all that spiritual investment that you had as a teenager and in college and when you were single, that set you up to be the type of person that you are when you're stressed out, don't have any time, and do all of those things. So for the dude, I would say, look for those moments, like we already mentioned in drawing near to God. But how about you bring God into all of those everyday things, into your job? Yep. Sorry, I just went on a rant there, but it's you're doing it, just keep doing it.
Yep.
And it's going to be hard.
Yeah, and there's cheat codes.
Go for it.
There are, like you hit on them. Like if you want to spiritually lead your kids, a part of that, maybe that's not, you don't have time to do the family Bible study every day all together, but you can drop them off somewhere, right? You can take them to Tab Students or to our Foundry Wednesdays where we are devoted during the school year to teach the ever-living crap out of the gospel. And that's what we're going to do week in and week out. So if you want to see and spiritually lead your kids, Wednesday nights at 6:30 at either one of our campuses, the best thing you can do as a spiritual leader is bring your kid to those places because I promise they're going to get to learn the Bible. Oh, you go to the Manistee campus and you're a man? Sweet, we have a fight club upstairs. what better way for your kid to be spiritual led than to see their dad show up to Bible study and they're going to Foundry? Oh, you're a Tab woman? Don't worry. As soon as our Tab Kids space is done, we'll have a Tab Women's group meeting on Wednesday nights as well. So when you drop your kid off, you guys can all come together. Everybody come learn the Bible together. And then you ride home in the car. And your Wednesday night is no longer about you, but it's about what God wants to do in your family's life. But I think there's those cheat codes, right? Serve together, right? Do things with your family. Let them see you loving God in those spaces. If you work, sweet. Take your kid with you sometime if you can. Let them see what dad does on a day-to-day, but find those times and those spaces to invite everybody into it together. And yeah, I would just encourage that. Find those little spots where you can love God and your family, and it doesn't have to be like this. I think you hit on it with it's not a compartmentalized, but it's just your whole life is built towards this.
Deuteronomy chapter 6. This is Old Testament, and it gives us the foundation, and it's part of the mission statement of our church was to love God and love people and make disciples. Well, I think sometimes people think making disciples is like this. We got Bibles, we got pens, we got papers. We're making it official. Here's your curriculum. Here's the workbook. Okay, kids, everybody come. Family meeting. Bring your workbooks.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to poo-poo that entirely because for some people that works. For me, I'd rather put a fork in my eye, right? Mm-hmm. And just knowing the dynamics of my family. You know, back when they were all under one roof, 5 kids, that wouldn't have worked.
I can't imagine.
It would have never worked. But I had a wise man again who pointed out what it says in Deuteronomy 6 with God's command to his people, starting in verse 4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. Verse 6, and these words that I command you today shall be on your heart. So it starts, how do you do with all the busyness? Well, it starts with your heart. If my heart is completely devoted, submitted to God with all that stuff that we followed, it says, you shall teach them diligently to your children, and you shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way, and when you lie down, and when you rise. So now there's a different translation of verse 7. It says, you shall teach them diligently to your children. You shall talk of them when you sit in your house, and when you walk by the way. It's as you are going. I think it says in the NIV 1984, which I read back in the day, right? The point is talk about spiritual things openly with your kids. You know, I've said it before from the pulpit. I think I've said on this podcast, lots of times life got so busy, the most I could do driving the kids to school in the morning was pop open an app on my phone and give them the verse of the day. This is the verse of the day. And it's a little thing, and sometimes they were into it, and sometimes they were, they hated life, and it's like, why is he doing this again? But it's a verse of the day. It took 1 minute.
Yep.
And if it was a hard verse, I'd say, I think this is what that means. And over and over and over, I'm doing that. And did I do it every day? No. If it was a Wednesday and I forgot Monday and Tuesday, I would go, oh, by the way, this is the verse of the week, right? But it's as you are going.
Yeah.
It could be on the way home from church. Hey, what'd you guys learn today? This is what or you start with what you learned. Hey, do you know what I learned, guys? This is what I learned.
Yep.
Did anybody else learn something?
Yeah.
Crickets.
Yep.
Okay, well, keep going. You're the man. You're the dad. Don't be afraid to be stupid. That's just with your kids. With your wife, it could start by, hey, once a month or during hard times, crawl in bed late at night. She's stressed. Pull her close. Hey, we're going to pray. Right there in the dark. You don't have to say anything. I'm just going to say it. So it's at, those things, don't compartmentalize it. It's this whole as you are going piece. Talking about God, letting them, how many times do I have a dad say, oh, my kids have seen me screw up so many times. Okay. Well, how do you teach them God's commands as you were going? Go back in the room and say, you know what, guys? I shouldn't have spoken to your mom that way. That's wrong.
Yep.
I was harsh. And I've already asked God to forgive me. Look at your wife and say, would you forgive me? And son, please don't talk to your wife that way someday. I could never do that. Well, you asked the question.
Yeah.
That's how you do it.
Yeah.
You live life as an open. They know you're jacked up anyways. They live in your house.
Right.
So don't try to pretend you're perfect. Just say, listen, I screw up, and this is why I'm so thankful for God's grace.
Yeah.
And then look for an opportunity to show them grace.
Yep. That is good. Really
no, this is the way my dad raised me. Son, you left the axe in the woods, and so now you got to pay for it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, use wisdom. Is that going to exasperate your kid?
Right.
Well, what if you were to say, son, you know how much that cost? Oh, that cost, $50. That's a $50 axe. I don't know how much axes cost. Well, now it's ruined. You broke it.
Yep.
Now, in the world's eyes, you should pay that back. But you know what, son? I'm going to show you grace. And not only do you not have to pay it back, I'm going to buy you a new one. I'm going to buy 2. One for me that you don't get to use, and one for you for your little project.
That is $10.
You know, and use it as a teaching opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or say, son, this is what judgment looks like. I don't know, but just, look for those little chances, man. But last thing I'll say, if your kids are little, dads should be praying with their little kids, for sure. There comes a time when they can pray on their own, but when they're little, you need to pray with your kids. I pray with all of my kids. You need to read them Bible stories. In my house, if a kid read the Action Bible cover to cover, it's that cool
the comic book
one. But dude, it's a whole Bible. Yeah. It was cooler than anything I had when I was a kid.
They did skip like 20 stories.
Yeah, they skipped some. Yeah.
A lot of it.
Yeah, it would have been a lot, but you got the gist, right? In my house, if you read the Action Bible cover to cover, you got paid.
Nice.
No, they should do it just because they want to. They don't want to.
Is that still a rule?
Yeah.
I'll move in.
You want to get paid to read the Action Bible? Okay.
Scoot over,
on
Benji.
The podcast, Britton, you read the Action Bible cover to cover, you'll get paid.
Scoot over, Benji. Yeah. Sweet. Well, we got through 3 of them.
We got through 3.
Yeah. And, we have time for there's some in here that are kind of, it's a good.
We got time for a couple more easy ones.
Yeah. A good question. Maybe. Like page 1, number 2. This is a good one to jump into here. This person asked, "Why is Johnny V so ridiculously good looking?" ? And then they followed up with a statement. Would love to hear a service on 7 pillars related material. Yeah. So 1, why is John Vermelia so ridiculously good looking? Which I think that is accredited to.
Dude, I know who wrote this. The only person who would say this and not bat an eye, it's going to be Clayton Porter.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks, Clayton. Love you. That is. Maybe in his eyes, I'm ridiculously good looking. I don't think I'm ridiculously good looking. I got snaggle teeth. I'm barely 5'10". I got to drop about 20 pounds. But the second
the latter part, yeah.
Yeah. Would love to hear a service on 7 pillars related material.
What is 7 pillars?
7 pillars is actually a curriculum from a ministry out in the West Coast. I think it's in Oregon, called Pure Desire. And it specifically helps men and women fight the battle with lust, not just with pornography, but any kind of sex addiction. Sex addiction, sexual sin is killing the church in 2022. And it's an excellent curriculum. A lot of men in our church have gone through it. It's one of those things that we don't put on the website or put on the app. Hey, who's ever struggling with porn and lust or whatever? We'd love for you to sign up for this group. In fact, there's a sign-up sheet right there in the 3rd space. Right. That's a great way to get no one, involved. But as we're talking with men, or men are in Fight Club, or men seek counseling or whatever, and if that is an issue, we have some great men who are leading 7 pillars groups. Mm-hmm. And whether it's for someone who's actively acting out in some sort of sexual sin, or whether it's been in their past, or they want to bulletproof their relationship, it's a great curriculum. Yep. It takes a long time to go through it. I had the privilege of going through this curriculum years ago with a friend who's no longer at our church, and I felt God leading me to actually be a part of leading online groups because there's so many pastors that struggle with this. Yeah. And so I've actually done 2 online Zoom type meetings with pastors from all over the country. Yeah. So I haven't yet figured out how to have a I don't see a sermon that's about 7 pillars. Right. But everything that we've learned from that, and I'm not the only pastor on our staff who's been through that, you see it integrated into our preaching and into our teaching. Yep. But it is an issue. It's big time. And if you're a person that is struggling with this issue, right? Pornography, masturbation, maybe affairs, even same-sex attraction in man or a woman, I would say talk to a pastor or a staff member, man or woman that you feel comfortable with, and said, hey, is there a place where I can get help? And we can direct you to these.
And I know that we do have groups available at both campuses.
Yeah.
As well as we can point you in the direction of online groups and different stuff like that as well. So,
right.
Yeah, that's good. Benji, how much time? What are we at right now?
1 hour.
We're at 1 hour? Well, we'll call it good then. I got a couple in here, softballs, but we can save those for next time. Sweet. Well, that's the first installment of Questions Men Ask. We're excited about There's a ton of other good stuff on here, and based off how fast we answered 3-4 questions, we'll be doing this till
We've got
season
12
4.
more. Yeah. So this is first installment. So actually, this is episode 71, and so it'll be
Which is
questions
crazy to
men asked
think
part
about.
1. What's that?
We have done the podcast, not including the months that we took off. We have done the podcast 71 weeks.
That's awesome,
'Cause
dude. I could do it every
we
day
haven't
of the
bulk
week.
recorded. My dad texted me that the other day. I was like, man, time flies by. Because it feels like we were just now sitting down at the table that I found that we stickered and all that. I don't know. It's cool. So for those people that have been listening for 71 episodes, thank you guys.
That's awesome.
It's fun, and I'm excited for 71 more. So
Yeah. So gratitude's important.
do we do a live recording for our 100th episode?
Yes, that's a great idea. Ooh, that could be a Q&A with the audience, live recording. I don't know how we'll fit everybody in.
There would
in
have
here.
to be a.
But here, sorry,
It'd
go
have
ahead,
to
buddy.
be like a special camera action to make people watch it.
Yeah. We could just
Ooh,
bring everybody in here.
we could do it.
No,
No, we could do it in T2.
I bet we could figure it.
Matt Hughes, which I started with gratitude. I want to say thank you again to you, Britton Bishop. I'm saying it on the podcast because the podcast idea was always an idea we toyed with, but it just wasn't right. I mean, you talk about leading and calling. I knew this vehicle God could use to bless our church and to people that follow our church and to people outside there. I mean, there's still people that don't even go to church, but they listen to the podcast.
Right.
That's awesome. If that's
Mhm.
you, I'm not putting you down, but come to church.
Yeah.
But I want to thank you because when you heard about it, you made it happen. And you actually went outside of our budget. You actually raised money outside the church for the initial stuff. Like you were like, I already got the money.
Yep.
And I was like, wow. So whoever that person or persons was, thank you.
Yeah.
And then Matt Hughes, who just
Absolutely.
made it happen.
Oh,
The man's
This
a
thing
genius.
blew up when
Yeah.
Matt got a part of it.
Yeah. My son,
Yeah.
who I never thought would be over here as one of the
Shout out, Benji.
producers. Yeah. Shout out, man.
No.
Yeah, he gives a lot of hours to this, you know.
That's
and
for you, Benj. No free
Yeah.
shout outs.
No free shout outs. No, right? To Victoria,
Yeah.
who helps edit
Yep.
the blurbs
Yep.
that we put out.
It's a team. It takes a village to get
Yeah.
this thing going. That's
But
for
also
sure.
to the staff and the people that are like listening and giving us feedback.
guests.
Yeah, it's been fun. Guests.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we don't. Yeah, if you're thinking, oh, if I'm a guest, what do I do? Do I get a Chick-fil-A gift certificate? Not yet.
Treasure in heaven.
No free shout outs.
No free shout outs.
No free shout outs.
Ghost. We would love to be sponsored. Get a fridge with just Ghost energy drinks in it, Benji. We could do a mini fridge right there. What do you think? Just with Ghost energy drinks.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So
I reject that.
reject
And I'll tell you why. Because there'll be a fridge of Ghost energy drinks, and I won't get any. Do I need to insert brats here?
They'll be right over there, though. They won't be dropped off in Manistee and then brought here.
What is the brat situation, Dublin General Store?
Yeah, it is football season, so I need to reach back out to those boys.
Will the brats make it here?
Good Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. I think the
I'll
creek
give
rose.
you $20 if you don't eat them.
$20. I'll just go buy you brats and bring them here and make my $8.
Make your $8.
Yes, we'll get
My
some over
favorite
here.
moment from the last podcast is when you had that confession that there were brats that didn't make it here. The death stare you got from our producer
Oh,
right
I
there in
know
the
it.
corner.
I wish people could see
He was
him.
just he wasn't flinching.
No, I wish people could see it. So
Yeah.
we'll do our best. Dublin, we love you guys. If you haven't been there, great jerky, great brats, great family. I don't know. It's made their new
Great jerky, great brats,
yeah,
great
this
family.
added the last
Good
part.
times.
Yeah.
No free shout outs.
No Wi-Fi inside the building.
No Wi-Fi. Oh, and one more thing.
Yep.
If you go through Chick-fil-A drive-through, no free shout outs.
Yes.
If Gabby's working, take a selfie with Gabby.
Selfies with Gabby.
Send it to me. I got
It's blowing
selfie.
up.
I don't even know why, but it's like this girl is just like a
Yeah.
little sunshine.
Oh,
and
it literally that day, Adam and I showed up there. Besides the active sin she was living in by drinking orange juice with chicken nuggets, which her and I have argued about plenty of times. There's something about she fully embodies, like Chick-fil-A. If you're listening to this, I know you guys think you have good employees on your commercials. Gabby Vermilia fully embodies what Chick-fil-A is all about.
she lives for it, man.
Yeah,
She
so,
lives for it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
So if
think-
you take a selfie with Gabby at Chick-fil-A, get it to me. We'll post it. We're trying to make it go viral.
I'm gonna do a selfie with Benji, see if it'll go viral. No, not a chance.
You'll
Yeah.
have to blur my face.
You can also do a selfie with Lily. We haven't had
Mundos,
a single
I'm on the hunt.
selfie
I think I'm gonna
with
go.
Lily.
I'm gonna go on the hunt today.
Yeah.
So,
But the problem with that is there's 4 different locations. You don't know where she's going to be.
I'm going to every single one of them.
She could be in Sutton's Bay, one of the 3 Traverse City locations, and then
No free shout outs, Mundos.
no free.
Hey,
shout
which,
outs, Mundos.
I love our staff. I love that we have coffee here. But, we got a pastor's daughter that works at Mundos.
How do we not get Mundo's coffee?
We talk
here?
about Mundos all the time, and we're drinking Folgers upstairs.
Wow.
Mundos, what's up?
What's up, Mundos?
What's up, Mundos?
No free shout
Live
outs.
recording from Mundos if you give us free coffee.
Live podcast recording from Mundos.
Adam would be not happy.
Dude, I had lunch with her there, and
Get the
they
cheddar
make,
lime hash.
they don't make that anymore. Can you believe that?
Turn
The
it off.
cheddar lime
turn
hash.
it off.
All right.
No, I'm just kidding.
But you know what they did? They found a way to put that same thing in a burrito now.
But it was on a waffle before.
I know. And I asked for that. I was like, what is that thing that breaks Britton? I want it. And she was like, oh, we've actually changed our menu. And so I actually had a burrito for lunch there with a coffee, which was weird. But yeah, no free shout outs.
Then just buy the burrito and pour it on a waffle.
Like where Benji says that, just take that to Big Boy.
Put the burrito on the waffle, a little syrup.
Yeah.
You'll die.
But hey,
Don't do it. You've been a good boy.
I know I have.
You're looking fit.
Trying to.
You're going to be fit.
Sweet. Well, Benji, thanks, bro. Appreciate you. Kill a big deer. Or you already killed a big deer. Who knows?
We don't know.
Nobody knows. Yeah, until next time, Tab family, this is John, Britton, and Benji signing off.